Uh, During the second and the third industrial revolution, we adopted technology with profit motive in our minds. So we created a massive wealth inequality. Yesterday, Oxfam reported, in 2017 alone, nearly 80% of the wealth that got generated went to 1% of the world.
Say that again. That is very powerful. Say that again.
People think, when I quote examples of the second and third industrial revolution, I'm talking about 1600s and 1800s. In 2017, 80% of the wealth that got created went to 1% of the world's population, right? The 50% of the poor got nothing, right? This is in 2017, right? And what Klaus Schwab in his book, Shaping the Fourth Industrial Revolution says is, look guys, I know all of you would adopt, the technologies, but just be mindful. How would you bake in humanity into all your projects, be it this massive, climate change program or this minuscule human resource transformation in your own company, right? So how do you bake in that? So that is the biggest challenge. So he asked that question so many in different ways. And my challenge is, how do I bring it into, how do I make it into a process? So he then goes on to say, look at design thinking. And design thinking as a process starts with human empathy, right? But the biggest problem with human empathy is there is no way to capture, quantify, and visualize human emotions, human empathy, and we're just getting started on it. So that is my first point. So first, bring humanity, human values. Do not just focus on ROI, TCO, all of us know that. How do we maximize human ambition, minimize human pain? Can we measure it, right? That's my first point. Second, adopt platform economy. So when I say go for inequality, address inequality, I don't mean, do Robin Hood, right? Don't take from the rich and give it to the poor. It's not through taxation, but it is through access, right? So it is about creating platforms that can connect the consumers of value and the producers of value without even a middleman like Uber, right? So, by just connecting the passengers and drivers, it's a $40-50 billion company, right? Now, how do we employ that? Almost four of you talked about blockchain. How do you employ a simple blockchain technology to bring trust, transparency, and traceability into a simple Uber-like platform? Can somebody disrupt Uber, right? So that would be the second advice. Bring a platform economy-based approach to designing and building systems. So the first is design thinking, the second is the platform economy, and the third, I would say, is a combination of zero touch. Can you create platforms that do not require a massive amount of people to do a lot of menial jobs? So zero touch combined with no bias. Even machine learning, the supervised machine learning has built-in bias, a lot of bias, right? Can you build platforms without bias? And that's my third one. So design thinking, platform economy, no bias. Three things, but the focus of all three is a lifelong learning and humanity in the middle.
So I wanna dive deep on that. Anyone that feels like jumping in, feel free. So it feels like a little bit of a contradiction when you have technology and humanity sometimes right next to each other, when you're talking about empathy and the heart. Like, get into the heart before you get to the mind, right? So now that we're seeing the teenage generation that did grow up with all devices and all connectivity, which many of us did not, we are seeing that there is behavioral impact, even physiological impact into the way some of these kids are behaving, which is concerning. It's concerning because in a very ironic way, embracing the technology is having an impact in the brains, back to Mr. Lucas' work there, and not just that, but potentially how we emotionally even relate to each other. Is there a way to future-proof ourselves from our own selves as this continues to evolve and happen and grow, so we don't lose the humanity in this process of applying technology for humanity? Anyone has a take on that? Did we even anticipate about that? How do we become responsible technology enablers to